Hey guys, this is Pete from Drunken.js, and I'm going to show you the very first baby steps that you could take to start down the path of learning web development. And it doesn't require a lot. I'm going to do this with Windows because if you're not already a developer, you're probably, just by looking at the market share numbers, you're probably using Windows. So I'm going to go ahead and do this with Windows. And Windows by itself comes with actually a text editor that you can use to start learning HTML. So I'm going to show you that a little bit. I'm going to show you how to bring it up in a web page in a web browser. And by web browser, I mean Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or that kind of thing. And yeah, we're going to go cover a few basic HTML tags and just the very beginning, very basics of HTML. So the very first thing, if you've never done it, any sort of development ever, which is who this video is for in the first place, in Windows you can actually go ahead and click down here. This is Windows 10. If you're using a different version of Windows, you can go ahead and click the start button and there should be a run option, but if there is a run option, you can type the same thing in that box. But for Windows 10, you go ahead and type in Notepad, and that brings up Notepad. And Notepad is a great way to just start getting your feet wet in web development. So we're gonna go ahead and start typing in there. So let's just go ahead and type some shit. And now let's go ahead and go to File. And we're gonna save this. We wanna put it in a place where we can easily find it. For now, I'm gonna put it on the desktop. Let's go ahead and create a new folder. And I do that by right clicking. And I go to New, and I go to Folder. And now I'm gonna call this HTML1. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it some dumb shit. You can call it whatever you want. So let's go ahead and click into there. And now we need to give it a name. So I'm going to go ahead and call it something.html. And it's very important in Notepad that you click all files. Otherwise, it's going to put a .txt at the end of this. It's very important. You can call it anything you want for the name of the file, but the extension, you're definitely going to want to have that be .html. That's so that when you open the web browser, it knows that you're talking about HTML. So let's go ahead and click save on this. And now I'm gonna go ahead and actually you see my folder show up here, HTML1. And now I'm gonna go ahead and open up my web browser. In my case, Google Chrome. Ignore your file was not found. And let me bring that over. Now in pretty much every web browser, you can open up files from your hard drive just by hitting Control and O. Just holding down Control and tapping the O key. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And so it might come up with some place that's completely foreign like it is here. Just go ahead and click Desktop if you saved it on your desktop like I did. And here's my HTML1 folder. So I'm gonna go ahead and click in there, and here, hey, look, it's something.html. And when I double click it, the web browser opens up that file. Excuse me. And you see, it says, let's just go ahead and type some shit. Congratulations, you made your first web page. You can now tell all your friends and family that you are a web developer. And much rejoicing, much cheering. So basically you can tell that HTML, basically, if you put some text in there, it's going to render it for you. It's going to show it to you. And that's just the basic crap that I just typed in. And that is actually a web page. Just mainly because when I bring it up, it actually shows my content and I'm happy. Is it a valid web page? Well, that's something we'll get into in a later video. But no, it's not a valid web page, but it doesn't matter for your first baby steps because you're just learning this. So now we want to get into something called tags, HTML tags. And tags are basically just HTML entities, just things you type in that tell the web browser how to display things or how to contain it or lots of other things. But for now, we're just going to start with some very basic tags. And let me go ahead and show you what a tag is. So when I go ahead and I'm moving my cursor to just before the word ahead in Notepad, and I'm going to go ahead and do a less than sign, and I'm going to do EM, and I'm going to go after the ahead, and I'm going to type in /EM. So this is the basic format of a lot of HTML tags. You're going to see most of them have this sort of EM or have this sort of tag where it's less than a bracket, and then in between you put some letters that mean something to the web browser, and after it you put the /EM to close it, to say, hey, okay, we're done with that. So let's go ahead and just hit File, Save, and now I'm going to click back to my web browser, and we're going to hit refresh. And now you see, it's kind of hard to see here. I'm going to blow this up. The word ahead is now italicized. So that's what the EM HTML tag does. And basically, so a tag is really just these this less than sign and this greater than sign, and then some letters into it, something that means something. So for HTML, EM stands for emphasis. So in this case, we surrounded the word ahead with the HTML tag of EM, and that italicized the word ahead. So anything in between the EM, the open EM, we call this the open tag, and we call this the close tag. So anything in between, it suddenly gets italicized. So that's your first HTML tag. So this is actually sort of a newer variation of an HTML tag to italicize things. You may see down the road that you can also use the letter I. And because I changed the open tag to I got to change the close tag to I to match it. So the web browser says, okay, we've got this open tag, and it'll read across and be like, oh, now you're closing it, because this letter is the same, this close tag is the same as this open tag. So now everything between gets some sort of treatment to it. In this case, we're italicizing. So if I hit File, Save, this will actually not look different because the I and the EM are very similar. So this is still italicized. So that's your very first HTML tag. Well, actually two tags, I guess. There are very slight differences between the two, which you'll learn later on as you learn HTML. So let's learn another tag. What if you want to make something bold? So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and make this word "and" bold for no good reason. So you do your open tag, in this case strong. That's my open tag. And now I'm going to close it. That's a closing tag for the tag strong. So I open the strong tag, and I close the strong tag, and anything in between will get the strong tag treatment. And in this case, the strong tag, if I save and I click back over to my web browser and then click refresh, see the word "and" is now bold. So that's what strong does. Just like with EM, this also has an older variation. You can also use the letter B, and it will actually achieve the same effect. So let's go and hit File, Save, and hit refresh. Same effect. So it's still bold. Okay, so there's some kind of weird stuff I'm gonna cover right off the bat. So if I hit enter and I type some more shit, so so this shit is on a different line, and I hit File and Save, this is totally going to be on the next line below. Wait, no, it's not. I lied. I completely lied. So with HTML, when you type stuff, when you type a big long string of text, HTML is going to put everything on one line. And if your web browser is narrower, it'll go ahead and auto wrap it for you, do some word wrapping for you. So that's weird, because in my code, my HTML file, this is on a different line than the original line that we typed out. So how does that work? Well, like I said, it's gonna try to render all your text on the same line. It's not gonna automatically insert line breaks. That's a good thing for a lot of more advanced reasons that you'll get into later as you learn web development. But for now, I'm just gonna show you a few ways where we can actually do multi-line text for the web browser. Excuse my stuttering. And so the very first way, the very basic way, something that's good for now so you can learn it a little bit, but you probably want to get it out of the habit, and you're probably going to see it in HTML down the road. You can use a BR tag, and this is going to be the first tag that doesn't need to be closed. It basically closes itself. So just it existing is enough. You don't need to wrap anything. So like this has an open and a close. The BR tag in HTML does not need a close tag. So we're gonna go ahead and hit File and Save and hit refresh. And now it's on a different line. So I told you that this is not something you probably want to get into the habit of, the BR tag here. It's not the best for some more advanced reasons, but for now, let's just go ahead and show you a better way of putting things on a different line. There is a HTML tag called paragraph tag, and it's just the letter P. And you want to wrap your paragraphs with the letter P. So just like with I and the B, we're going to wrap this with the P tag. So here's my close P tag. Here's my open P tag. And everything in between is treated as a separate paragraph. So now I'm going to do that for the second line as well. Now let's go ahead and hit File, Save. It's going to look slightly different. You see this got moved down a little bit. If you remember college term papers, by default, web browsers treat text as sort of double spaced. So this gets a little bit of space in between the two paragraphs. Even though these are just one sentence each, I told the HTML to treat them as paragraphs. So that's the P tag. So let's go ahead and okay, we're gonna start getting into the structure of an HTML document. So there is actually a HTML tag. You're gonna wanna wrap your whole HTML file in the HTML tag. So all your content, everything should go in between the HTML tag. There's only one exception, and you should just sort of memorize this. It's not really important for you to know it as you're doing baby steps in HTML. This should be the only tag that you will see above the HTML open tag. And this is the HTML open tag. This is the only tag you will see above HTML. That is doc type HTML. So that's cool. So just go ahead and just remember that. Commit it to memory. It's good to have it. This is basically signaling to the web browser that you're using HTML5, the latest, as at the time of this recording, it's the latest version of HTML. I don't see them changing this anytime soon. If you look at like older HTML tutorials or whatnot, this doc type thing may be a lot more complicated, and that's because it may be using HTML4 or older doc types, and those doc types are much more complicated. But thankfully in HTML5 they simplified it amazingly, where it's just doc type HTML. When you get more advanced, there are a couple things you can insert in here, but for now 90% of the time you're just going to be using doc type HTML. And so this is letting the web browser know that all my HTML is here. So that's good and all that we've told it that all of our HTML is inside that open HTML and that closed HTML. But now we need to get into the differences between my content, and my content 99% of the time is going to be text, images, video files, maybe audio files, maybe, that kind of thing. All your content goes inside of a body tag, and that goes inside of the HTML tag. So now we got open body, close body. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put a tab in there so you can sort of more visually see that this is our content inside the body tag. Now there are tags that are used by the browser to give it more information about your web page that aren't actually content. And I'm going to show you the first version of that, the first tag that actually fits that bill. And all those tags go inside what's called the head tag. So we go ahead and type that in. Now we got the head tag. This is what's called meta information. Just the word meta just means it sort of describes the content, but it isn't actually part of the content. So in this very first example, the first meta tag that you're going to learn, the first tag that goes in the head of a web page is the title tag. So I'm going to go ahead and put a title tag, and we're going to go ahead and say this is some dumb crap. And finish. So now we got the open title, close title. And so what does that do? So when I hit file and save, click back over to my web browser. Now I want you to watch up here on the tab of my Google Chrome. You see where it says something.html? If I hit refresh now, do you see where it says this is some dumb crap now? That's because that's what's in my title tag. So the title tag actually tells you what the title of your web document is. And now we're gonna dive into the next tag that you're gonna want to learn, because not all the web is just straight boring text for people to read. You kind of want to also include some imagery, I would assume, some actual images. So we're gonna go ahead and actually, let me drag my browser back over, and we're gonna go ahead and let's grab an image somewhere. So right now, currently I'm drinking some Kettle One vodka. Yeah, there's a lot of images of vodka here. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's go ahead and right click. Yeah, I'll click on this. Right click anywhere on the image. I'm gonna save image as. Now let's go back into desktop where our folder lives, and here's HTML1. Click in there. I'm actually gonna save this with a different file name so it's easier to type. So we're actually gonna call it kettle.jpg, and you go ahead and click save, and then let's go ahead and close. And basically what I was saying before about some tags don't sort of follow this open close paradigm. The next tag I'm going to show you is one of those that also doesn't follow that open close paradigm. It's the image tag. This is img. And now we're going to get into the next sort of key term in HTML called attribute. And it's important to know what an attribute is. So every one of these tags has sort of different attributes that you can attach to them to give them a little more information to the web browser to tell it how to render it. So if I just do image and I hit file, save, and I click refresh, nothing happens. Why is that? Because the image tag, the img tag, is telling the web browser, hey, I want to display the image, display an image. But the problem is we haven't told it what image to display. So I'm going to show you the first attribute. And attributes in HTML tags follow the sort of convention of, hey, I've got an attribute equals, and then something inside of quotes. And that'll tell the browser, okay, here's some information on how to display this. So for the image tag, the attribute to tell it what image I want to display is the src for source attribute, and then we do equals and then quotation mark, and then we give it the file name of what we just downloaded. So if I go back into my HTML1 folder, you'll see kettle.jpg is the file name of that image. So let's click back over to the code, and I'm going to type in kettle.jpg. So in this case, src is the attribute, img is the tag. This is the value of the attribute, of the src attribute. When you start getting more advanced, pretty much all these tags can have different attributes on them. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit file, save with the src attribute in place. Click back over to my web browser, hit refresh. Boom, here's my Kettle One vodka in all its full glory. And you see it's really large and really blurry and really crappy looking, but it's there, right? So victory. So let's dive straight into giving this a second attribute. And you can do attributes in any order you want, doesn't matter. The names of the attributes matter. So like src matters, but you can do attributes in different orders. So the image tag actually has a width attribute as well available for you. So I can type in a number here to tell it how wide to display it. And whatever number I type in here is going to be in the number of pixels. And pixels are just basically the smallest unit of width on the browser. You think of it like atoms in the universe. It's basically like it's the smallest possible point on a page, and your whole web page is basically one big grid of pixels, a certain number of pixels across, a certain number of pixels down. If any of this is confusing, once you start playing around with it, it's not really confusing at all. And it's basically, and you'll get used to the widths and heights and the values that you can put in here to get things the way you want it to look. And I will tell you, trial and error is huge in HTML, especially when you're learning. So when I downloaded it, it looked like that the width was 400. I'm just gonna toss in a number here. Let's just go 10. So 10 pixels wide. I'm gonna click back over to my web browser. Oh, that's really tiny. Okay, so 10 was way too small. If you will notice that I gave it a specific width, the web browser will be helpful for you. If you only specify a width, you could also specify a height attribute, our third attribute on this tag, and you can make it something crazy. Let's make it 1,000 pixels. And we'll go ahead and file, save, refresh. Now it's really stretched. It really stretched down. So it's 1,000 pixels high, 10 pixels across. So it's just basically like this sliver here. And so that's obviously not what I want. But the nice thing is the image has a specific width to height ratio, which you don't have to worry about if you only specify one or the other, width or height. So I'm going to go ahead and take the height back out. And I'm just going to type in, let's try 100. 10 was obviously way too narrow. So I'm going to go ahead and try 100 pixels. Let's do file and save. And let's go ahead and refresh. That looks a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that. And the bottle looks nicely defined, doesn't look too blurry, even though I'm zoomed in slightly. So with the 100 pixels, the browser actually automatically adjusts the height to match if you don't specify height yourself. So it actually sort of narrows it down for you, which is really nice. So we can actually go ahead and let's type in underliner text, you know, Ketel One vodka is the bestest ever. One, close p tag, file save. So that's cool. I hit refresh. Okay, one vodka is the bestest ever one. And you know, so the order matters here. So like if I take this line of text out and I put it below the image, and let's do file and save, and let's hit refresh, and now it's down here. So you can order your content like that. It might get a little fuzzy sometimes if you try to put the image inside of your text. If I put the image tag in here, you see how much larger the image is from my text. If I hit save and then refresh, it does its best to try to put your image inside your text, but you see it gets a little blown up. So that's something that we'll cover down the road to try to fix that. But for now, it's probably best just to keep your image tag separate from your text. Okay. So from this point on, I'm going to be using, if you see it says Control S, I'm going to be using that to save. I would highly recommend getting in the habit of using keyboard shortcuts because it really saves a lot of time. And so the next thing I'm going to show you is, hey, okay, it's great that we have one web page. What happens if we have another, we want to put some content on a different page and then link to it? And that's easy as hell. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But to do that, we're going to need a new file. So let's go ahead and do file new. And so for the second file, we're going to sort of do the same thing that we did before in the first file, doc type HTML, commit that to memory. Here's our open HTML tag. Let's put a head on it, title, some other crap. And body, and here's our content. This is some other dumb shit. And this is a link. I'm gonna go ahead and file, and we're gonna do save. It's gonna say, hey, that's untitled, so we need a different name. So we're in the right folder already, desktop HTML1. And remember in Notepad, we gotta select all files. And we see something HTML. Let's just call this something else.html. File save. So here's something else.html. So I'm gonna do that thing I did before, where I hit Control O and double click on this. Yeah, this is some other dumb shit. This is a link. And I'm sure if you've ever used the internet before, you know, you want to click on some text that's a link and it'll take you somewhere else. In this case, this says it's a link, but I'm clicking on it, nothing's happened. So now we're going to actually show you the HTML tag for links and how they work. So let's go back to our code, and we're going to make this piece of text our link. If you've used the internet before, you're probably familiar with it. Yeah, it's just a way to point the user of the web page, your visitor to the web page, to a different place. So the tag is actually the A tag. This is from sort of historical reasons. Stands for anchor, and use A, and then the attribute is href, and I'm gonna go ahead and leave that blank for a second. And then you close the anchor tag, /A. So that's our anchor tag. Now, how do I point this link back to our other page that we were just working on? Well, that's really easy, actually. Just like with the image tag that we saw on the other page, we just look at the file name. In this case, we're currently editing something else.html. We want to point it back to something.html, which was the page we were editing with the vodka image and all that. So how do we do that? We just type in the file name in the href attribute. So I hit file, save, refresh, boom. Now it's got an underline on it. It looks like, you know, now it looks more like a link. And when I hover over it, my mouse cursor turns into a hand. That's also a good sign. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this and boom. And it takes me right back to something.html, which is exactly what we want. But now we're here, how do we get back to something else.html? The same exact thing. So let's go ahead and do file, open that original file we were working on up. And, you know, in Notepad only, you want to hit all files on here and boom, you see the stuff. So let's go ahead and go back to our original file. And I'm gonna go ahead and add another line, a anchor tag again, a, and then href attribute, and type in the file name, something else.html. Go to the else, close anchor tag, file, save, and refresh. There we go. So there's my link. Go to the else. I'm zoomed in real far on this particular page, so that's why it shows up really big. So let me go ahead and make that down to normal size. By the way, to zoom in on pretty much any web browser, whether it be Edge or Chrome or Firefox or whatever, you can just hit Control and the plus sign. That zooms in your web page. Control minus. You can do this on any web page on the internet. Control plus, control minus, and to reset it back to, you know, whatever it's supposed to be by default, you just hit Control 0, and it takes it back to 100%. So I'm gonna go back and zoom back in 200% so you can see it better on this video. And I'm gonna go ahead and click on go to the else. And here we're at something else.html, and this is some other dumb shit. I click on this is a link, and we're back to the main page. Click, 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 click. Okay, so, and that's links. That's how you link one page to another. So I've been doing all this editing with Notepad, which comes with Windows. I would highly recommend that you download, there's many different text editors, and by, you know, just, this is a text editor. I'm just editing letters, words. There's many editors that you can use that are specifically designed to help you code HTML, CSS, JavaScript when you get to it down the road. And they're all free. All the ones that I'm gonna recommend are free. And yeah, I would highly recommend downloading one and installing it and trying it out. So the one I'm going to be using from, this is part 1. For the part 2 video, I'm going to switch to Sublime Text. So you can Google for it, or you can just go to sublimetext.com. And Sublime Text, and it's perfect, completely free. It's also cross-platform, so if you're watching this on a Mac, which is what I use for my personal development, you can actually, you know, it'll recommend that you're coming in from a Mac, and it'll offer a download link for that. So I just go ahead and click download for Windows, go through the install, and part 2 I will show you actually how to sort of set that up and get it ready for editing HTML. So that's what I recommend. So you see a lot of this color highlighting. that's part of why it's so nice, is because you type in just normal text and it will actually give you different colors for different things so that you can visualize your code a lot better. So if I go back to my notepad file, I can see this body tag, and when you bring this file up in Sublime Text, you know, the word title will show up in a different color. Anything inside of an HTML tag will show up a certain color. Attributes will show up in a different color, that kind of thing. It just makes it, it's just kind of a nicer sort of way to visualize and like easily parse your code visually and sort of help you easily visually understand the structure of your document and where things are and that kind of thing. So I will be using that from part 2 and on, and so I will actually see you there in part 2. I hope you enjoyed this. If there's any comments that you have, any questions, please feel free to hit me up. I'm on Twitter, pmilkman. That's the letter P followed by the word milkman. I'm also in, I'm right here on this channel. You can comment on a video and give me questions, that kind of thing, whatever you want. So yeah, that's part 1. That's all I really wanted to show for this particular part. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.